Hello all, I'm back for another video to show you another one of my paper creations. This time, I made the kaiju known as King Ghidorah, as he appeared in the 2019 film Godzilla King of the Monsters. As you have guessed, I really liked the way he was portrayed in the film, especially his design and character. This figure posed possibly the biggest challenge to my abilities, and the outcome is something I am quite happy about. I thought at one point I should really try my hand at a different kind of body shape and layout for my paper figures. After all this time I had made only figures of humanoid shapes. So this time, here is a proper so-called beast. Ghidorah has some quite nice coloring all around him. Despite his body composing of mostly yellow and golden color, with hints of gray and orange. I really like the shape and proportions of this figure too. The heads in particular, were the most difficult thing to make for this figure, and the fact there are 3 of them, did not ease the task one bit. I'll point out that this paper model is extremely fragile, more fragile than usual. In fact, you can see if you look closely that many of the spikes on Ghidorah are scraped off or broken. This is because of rough handling from my part. I guarantee that I did not intend those spikes to be ruined. They were part of the design, and I recreated them to the best of my abilities, at the time when I made the figure at least. This figure was made all the way back in September. Anyway, enough exposition. Here is the articulation of Ghidorah. The extremely fragile heads are on a joint attached to the neck, and move up and down and rotate and have joints to allow the mouths to open. Meanwhile, the neck has a new type of articulation I used. It is divided in many little segments, that facilitate motion in all directions. A really cool idea if you ask me. You may wonder what doesn't allow the neck to break or twist. Well, it's thick metal wires. I have used wires as the choice for articulation on this figure, and I consider it as cheating from my part, at least in theory, because these figures are not supposed to incorporate any other kind of material other than paper, card, glue, etc. Trust me, this was technically the best choice I had for this type of articulation, and I can say it works wonderfully. Unfortunately, one of the necks is a bit loose, because I only used 1 wire on the inside. The rest of the necks used 2 or 3, but are not as movable. Anyway, the necks all principally move the same way, and are attached to the body to 3 simple paper joints, only up and down motion, no rotation. Still, it is quite cool that there are 3 joints very near each other and they all work fine. Next there's the wings/arms of Ghidorah. To begin with, there is a joint here that allows the wings to flap back and forth parallel to Ghidorah's body. Here instead on the shoulder there is a joint that allows up and down motion and rotation. I wish I had made it stronger, because the wings tend to not stay in place. You learn from mistakes, I guess. Following up, there was a supposed joint here at the mid-wing section, but I glued it in to stay in place, due to complications. But it can still rotate. Near the end of the wings there are 2 joints that allow these massive appendices, that make up the largest part of the wing. One of them is stuck or too loose, and the other works okay. The upper joint here allows for the wing to expand, so to say, to make the wing look bigger, to make Ghidorah look more intimidating, but also to allow the wings to touch the ground to make Ghidorah walk on all 4s like a dragon. I think it's quite cool. It is so fun to play with this figure. Next there's the usual waist joint. It works, but the range is limited. There's slight rotation here too. The legs have a myriad of joints in them, all to make up for the zigzaggy shape of Ghidorah's upper and lower legs. There's the first and most important main leg joint. It has a good range. Next there's all these little joints that all rotate and move up and down. The feet also have joints. Moving to the back, there's King Ghidorah's long tails. The articulation for these is the same as the one for the necks of Ghidorah. The tails actually move better than the necks. Ironic, since I hardly ever move them anyway. As you can see, all these joints work fine, but still do pose a minor disadvantage for the figure. They make it a bit wobbly, just a bit though. Remember to reinforce your joints, kids. I'll show some of the details now. Starting from the heads, you can see they are a bit imperfect, but only because they are incredibly small. They are barely 3 centimeters long. Still, I added as much detail as I could. You can see if you look closely I added the eyes, but they have a very faint shape. I've also spared no effort to add Ghidorah some teeth, a tongue, and plenty of detail all near it. I am quite fond of these spikes on the back of the head. Each head has some, and they all are shaped accordingly. Each of the 3 heads is different by the way, both on the figure, and the real design. The head on the left has a somewhat calm and docile appearance, but you can notice more differences, such as the shape of the spikes on the back, and more. The central head looks very aggressive, partially because the mouth doesn't close all the way. But still, it has very cool spikes on the back. The right and third head has the worst execution unfortunately. but still has some quirks that make it distinguishable from the other heads. Coming down the neck, you can see there is a noticeable separation in color, with most of the necks being a golden brown color with gray accents, and many drawn spikes. They add so much coolness to this figure. In fact, they can be seen all over Ghidorah's body. At the back of the figure you can see the necks have rows of spikes. The central head supposedly has 2 rows, while the other necks have 1 row each. Furthermore, you can see the sculpted back muscles to compensate for the massive wings of Ghidorah. You can see the spikes are less frequently drawn near some parts of the body. This is unfortunately not exactly part of the official design of Ghidorah. However, the figure isn't necessarily ruined by that. The chest of Ghidorah also is sculpted to have this sort of big bubbly center, with other muscles around it. I am not very fond of the bright yellow parts of the figure. They should have been a darker yellow in my opinion, but still, the color I used was the only one I had that came closest to the intended tonality. I used a pencil to highlight the crevices in Ghidorah's body to make it look like the design. The wings of Ghidorah have a nice shape to them, and have a similar color to the chest of the figure. Once again, I regret picking this tonality of color for this figure. Anyway, you can see spikes here attached to the wings. They help to stabilize the figure, while also being part of the official design. Moving up the wing, you can see there's more fingers, as I like to call them. And you can also see just how massive the wings of this monster are. Both wings are the same, by the way. The lower body is quite special since it has 5 whole parts attached to it: the legs, the tails, and the whole of the massive upper body. Anyway, the legs look really nice, and the thighs also have some spikes on the side, as you can see. Furthermore, there's all these small parts of the lower leg that attach to the large feet of Ghidorah, that also have a nice shape and proportions to them. Some detail on the bottom too. More detail coming down the whole legs and back and lower body, to fade out as we reach Ghidorah's tails. They have a similar design as that of the necks, but end with these pointy-shaped things, that work as a combat weapon apparently. You can notice that in some parts of the figure the same golden brown color is slightly lighter in coloration in some parts of the body. That is due to my markers running out of ink/alcohol. Overall, this figure is amazing in my opinion. It is in no way perfect, but still has qualities that make me really proud of the results I was able to achieve. It is really fun to play around and pose this figure, despite struggling here and there to make it hold a pose. Here is a size comparison, with my Godzilla 2019 figure, which is 16.5 centimeters tall. Now, for the Godzilla geeks out there, I am going to say that I can confirm making this figure in scale with my Godzilla figure. As a matter of fact, I made this figure to compensate for the scale difference between the real plastic action figure of King Ghidorah. That figure, compared to Godzilla, is a bit too tall, which in my opinion is a bit of a flaw for a $200 figure. Anyway, I think I'll share some pictures I took of these two monsters. I really hope you enjoy watching my channel, and the figures I make. I think this figure in particular is quite special compared to others in my possession. The figure looks incredible next to the Big G. One last thing, check out the community section of my channel to receive further updates or see some figures whose video might never be available of. I salute you now everybody, thank you loads for watching.